participating through ReadyTalk, Twitter, and those who will be reviewing this webinar as a podcast or flash presentation later, hello. I'd like to welcome you to this new session of the Product Management View series. I'm Val Workman from Ryma Technology Solutions, one of the sponsors of this webinar. For those of you who aren't familiar with this series, it's been presented by members of our community for over the last 4 years now, and it's the world's largest repository of product management recorded presentations today. I'd like to thank ReadyTalk for their generous support of this community and their sponsorship as well, and welcome Rachel from ReadyTalk, who's back with us again, providing us with all kinds of background support. Rachel, I'd like to thank you for your help here.
Great, you're very welcome. Glad to be here.
And as our guest can attest to, you've taken care of us once again beyond measure. Today, ReadyTalk is going to be helping us, and we'll be introducing streaming audio to the community, in addition to the toll-free lines to Canada, U.S., and parts of Europe and Asia. And so it's our pleasure to be working with ReadyTalk. I will be your moderator today, and it's my pleasure to welcome Larry Coppenrath, the president of the IPM Alliance, and Alannah Sinclaire, one of his colleagues who's really excited to be able to share some of her experiences. She's very passionate about client endorsement, and wait till you meet these guys. I think you'll be pleased with them. This week's webinar is on client endorsement, and it was my pleasure to meet Larry. Larry's been, 2 years ago now, that he introduced to me his view on the Net Promoter Score and a better notion, which he now calls client endorsement. Today, client endorsement becomes even more relevant as communities increase their spend in social media marketing. And for those of you who are using Twitter, you can follow and add additional conversation and questions using the Twitter hashtag #PMV during this webinar and continue conversation after the webinar. Today's Twitter PMV conversation will be posted afterwards on the Product Management Views blog post. And I'd like to encourage you to make comments and additional questions on this post after the webinar. I'll be collecting questions throughout this presentation and review them during the question and answer session at the end, but feel free to add questions later. I'm going to pass the control now over to Larry and Alannah, and at the end of this presentation, come back with the question and answer session. Larry?
Thanks, Val. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to take a few minutes at the beginning of this to give you some background on the client endorsement theory. And over the next 45 minutes or so, Alannah and I are going to try to give you a fairly high-level overview of the theory behind client endorsement. And Alannah, at a point in here, will start giving you some information on what it takes to actually implement a client endorsement program. But before we launch into that, let me assure you that client endorsement, as we envision it, has absolutely history from satisfaction and from loyalty, but it is an entirely different perspective. The whole notion of client endorsement, as we see it, has more to do with the unification of companies' internal organizations and, more importantly, in a global environment, measuring the outcome of a delivery of service or whatever your particular niche is. So it's very important from our perspective that product managers and senior managers in companies across the globe have some idea of how to once and for all get cross-functional unification. So with that, let me try to I'm going to bring up the next slide here and give you some overview of what we're going to talk about. And I'm basically doing the introduction as we speak, but I'm going to give you some idea of how we actually evolved the endorsement theory. I'm going to get into a little bit about what I think the benefits of endorsement really are, and Alannah will then deal with the realities of client endorsement and what it takes to go about doing that. We have some recommendations for how one would essentially establish this program, and then we'll take some Q&A at the end.